The war between humanity and the carve had stretched on for years, its brutal nature forcing both sides to evolve in ways that had been unimaginable at the outset. The Stellar Vanguard, once an underdog, had become a symbol of hope and defiance for the rest of the galaxy. Yet the weight of their growing power was not without consequence. The Vanguard's rise was not just about military superiority. It was about humanity finding its place in the galactic community, if they could hold it. The carve had underestimated the human spirit, but now they were learning just how dangerous it could be when combined with advanced technology and military strategy. The Vanguard's fleet, with its fleet of quantum-shielded ships, had become a force unlike anything the carve had encountered before. The quantum shields were not invulnerable, but they were capable of absorbing and redirecting massive amounts of energy. This allowed the Vanguard ships to endure in battles that would have annihilated any conventional fleet. But it wasn't just the shields that made them dangerous. The hyper-accelerated drives, thanks to the research derived from the Eon Matrix, allowed their ships to outrun and outmaneuver carve vessels in ways that turned the tide in key battles. It was clear that humanity had found its edge. But with this new strength came the realization that humanity was about to face challenges not just from the carve, but from within their own ranks. The Stellar Vanguard was, after all, more than just a military force. It was a coalition, a fragile alliance of various human factions, each with its own agenda. The victory at Vega Prime had forged unity in the face of adversity, but that unity was precarious. As the Vanguard's influence spread across the galaxy, it began to confront the uneasy tension that had simmered beneath the surface. Humanity was no longer just trying to survive now. They had to decide what kind of future they wanted to create. Should they rebuild a society reminiscent of the one they had lost on Earth, or should they chart a completely new path, one that broke free from the shackles of their past? Admiral Stone, ever the diplomat and leader, understood the stakes. As a leader of the Vanguard, she had become something more than a military commander. She was a symbol of human perseverance, of the ability to rise above the ashes of a fallen world. Yet even Stone, with her unshakable resolve, was beginning to feel the strain of the delicate political balance that she was trying to maintain. As the Vanguard expanded, the original human colonies, those survivors of Earth's destruction, found themselves at odds with the newer, more independent factions that had developed on distant worlds. The Outworlders, those born on the fringes of the galaxy, had little connection to Earth and its ideals. They had grown up in a galaxy that was harsh, unforgiving, and far from Earth's utopian visions. To them, Earth was a lost myth, a symbol of a time that no longer mattered. The Outworlders were focused on their own survival, their own sovereignty, and their own agendas. They were pragmatic, focused on resource acquisition and expansion. Their leaders, ambitious and driven, saw the Vanguard not as a means to avenge Earth, but as a tool to secure power and territory. The Earth-born loyalists, on the other hand, were more traditional in their beliefs. They had seen their homeworld fall, and they wanted justice, revenge. They viewed humanity's resurgence as a way to restore Earth's lost glory, to rebuild a society centered around the ideals of Earth's legacy. For them, the carve were not just invaders, they were destroyers of all that humanity had ever been, and they needed to be erased from the galaxy. These loyalists believed that humanity should focus on avenging their fallen home, not on creating a new empire in the stars. Admiral Stone's struggle was in keeping these disparate factions united in the face of overwhelming external threats. She knew that if the Vanguard fractured, if humanity's political rifts deepened, they would all be easy prey for the carve and their allies. The carve, with their technological might and their vast military resources, was still a looming presence. Humanity's victories, impressive though they were, had not broken the carve's will. The carve were a race bred for war, and they would stop at nothing to crush humanity's uprising. Meanwhile, the Eldritch, a mysterious and ancient alien race that had remained largely neutral in the conflict, began to take notice of the Vanguard's growing power. The Eldritch were an enigmatic species, their motives often unclear, and their presence in the galaxy had been a source of fear and wonder for millennia. Their technology was unlike anything humanity could comprehend, their abilities seemingly beyond the reach of any other species. But for all their power, the Eldritch had remained largely detached from the affairs of the galaxy, content to observe the chaos without intervening. However, as the Vanguard's victories mounted and humanity's influence spread, the Eldritch began to grow concerned. They had always believed that the Carve were the dominant force in the galaxy, an unstoppable empire that had forged its dominance through both strength and subjugation. But the rise of the Vanguard challenged that notion. The Eldritch were not used to seeing a species rise so quickly from the brink of extinction, and they were not sure how to react. The Carve, meanwhile, began to look to the Eldritch for alliances. Their own war efforts had stalled, and they feared that the Vanguard's momentum would be the catalyst for an uprising that could drive them from their ancient strongholds. The Carve High Command, having suffered their worst defeats in decades, began to regroup. They realized that to destroy humanity, they could no longer rely solely on brute force. The dark matter weapons they had developed, powerful as they were, could no longer guarantee victory. Instead, they began to focus on covert tactics, on psychological warfare, and on exploiting humanity's weaknesses divisions within the Vanguard itself. They knew that if they could manipulate the factions within the human resistance, they could turn humanity's strength into its greatest weakness. This led to the rise of General Kyalath, a Carve commander whose reputation for ruthlessness was matched only by his strategic genius. Kyalath was tasked with infiltrating the Vanguard's leadership and spreading dissent among its ranks. He employed subversive tactics, sowing distrust among human commanders, and even planting false intelligence to undermine the Vanguard's campaigns. The Carve believed that if they could fracture humanity's unity, they could destroy the Vanguard from the inside, much like a disease that erodes its host. But the Vanguard was not without its countermeasures. Captain Lucas Riker, the hardened warrior who had once been driven by revenge, now became a key figure in the Vanguard's counterintelligence efforts. Riker's early experiences with the war had given him a deep understanding of the Carve's methods. He knew that the enemy's greatest weapon was not just their firepower, but their ability to manipulate and divide. And so, Riker led a new effort within the Vanguard, an intelligence and security network dedicated to rooting out spies and ensuring that humanity's unity was not shattered by the enemy's subtle manipulations. The next pivotal moment came when Admiral Stone was forced to make a decision that would change the course of the war, a preemptive strike against the Carve's primary military manufacturing planet, Xiphos, which had been producing vast quantities of warships, weapons, and biological agents. It was a risky mission, one that could weaken the Vanguard's fleet if it went awry, but the potential payoff was immense. If they could destroy Xiphos, it would cripple the Carve's ability to wage war for years to come. The mission was launched with full force, and the battle for Xiphos would become one of the defining moments in humanity's struggle. As the Vanguard fleet entered the system, they encountered overwhelming resistance, Carve forces far larger and more powerful than expected. It quickly became clear that the Carve were not just defending their planet, they were fighting for survival. The battle escalated into a bloodbath, with humanity's ships fighting tooth and nail to breach the Carve defenses. Yet despite the odds, the Vanguard pressed on. Admiral Stone, from her command ship, directed the operation with precision. Her ability to adapt to the rapidly changing circumstances, her understanding of strategy and tactics, became the beacon that guided the Vanguard's forces through the chaos. But it wasn't just her brilliance, it was the spirit of the humans fighting for something greater than survival. As the battle raged, the human fleet found a way through the Carve defenses, using every last ounce of their technological advancements and cunning to breach the planet's atmosphere. In a final, desperate push, the Vanguard succeeded. Zaphos was destroyed, its massive factories and weapon arrays reduced to rubble. The victory came at great cost, but it sent a powerful message. Humanity was not just surviving, they were striking back, and they were becoming a force that could not be ignored. The battle for Zaphos was not the end, but it was a turning point. The Carve would never again underestimate humanity, and the Vanguard had solidified its place as the new power in the galaxy. Yet, the cost of victory was steep, and the price of humanity's rise was just beginning to reveal itself. Admiral Stone, gazing out at the vast expanse of space, knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The Carve were not defeated. They would regroup, adapt, and return with vengeance. But humanity had shown them something they had never seen before. The fight for the stars was just beginning, and the Stellar Vanguard would lead humanity into the next chapter of its existence, one where the fate of the galaxy would be determined not by the strength of empires, but by the indomitable will of a people who refused to be conquered.